Welcome back, everyone. We are here today with another TV show review. Today we are reviewing the final episode of SENSE8. And so it was kind of, if you don't know the story behind the show and you're watching this, go back, watch our season 2 review, and go back and watch the show because it is good. And the show got canceled, the fans rallied, and they actually optioned it for a 2.5 hour final episode. So
they got this Firefly Serenity treatment. Yeah.
And so we watched it, and we're going to review it for you today. Now, because it is a TV show, even though it was like a TV movie thing, it is still a TV show, and as always, our TV show reviews are spoiler-filled. So if you have not watched it yet, don't watch any further. Go watch it and then come back, because we're going to spoil a lot for you right now.
As this was a finale, the plot was wrapping up a lot of the loose threads of the storyline that they have been building over the past couple seasons. So we had BPO as the main bad guy once again, and Whispers being a big element of that, and them trying to rescue Wolfgang essentially was the main beginning part of the plot, and then it just escalated from there, as most things do.
And so the main target for the SENSE8 cluster, our cluster that we're following, is this guy called the Chairman. And this guy was a little weird because he had a face mask on all the time and he didn't know who he was.
Because they don't want to see the face when they're being able to see where people are with their special sensate abilities.
Yeah, and I felt like he was okay. Obviously, Whispers is a much better villain, and he was actually on screen more than the Chairman anyways. But
the Chairman was kind of more of a, just gut punch at the end, because they revealed quite a bit throughout this movie, essentially, of some background of some things that Angelica had did, and she set some things in motion, and the Chairman ended up being, a guy that was involved in all that, or was present for it, so it was kind of a, getting back at the Sense8s for that.
I did feel like they almost, foreshadowed the Chairman's identity a little bit to, being a big thing, and then when he does finally reveal his face, I feel like it's just a who?
Yeah,
moment,
that was
you're
exactly what it was.
It's just some random guy.
It was a very deformed face.
Yeah, it was very funny to be oh, you're building up. I was waiting for it to be someone we knew, or someone from season 1 that we saw, or so, something weird like that.
So we also had this other group of Sense8s kind of come in. It wasn't their own cluster. They're called the Lacuna, and they essentially are their own almost tribe-like thing, where they're kind of trying to protect the Sense8s, and they have certain ideals around that, and some of them agree, disagree, and I don't really know what the point of them was. They were interesting and cool, but I felt like it didn't really do much for the storyline overall.
I felt like that was one of those moments that they had part of their plot and they didn't cut it out when they had to cut things down. When they had to cut the last 3 to 4 seasons of their show into a 2.5 hour movie, they're well, let's leave this in because it's important. But we don't know why it's important because we didn't get to see the rest of that show.
Yeah, it just didn't really go anywhere, which was strange.
It was an interesting piece of world building, but one that ultimately was a little unnecessary, I think, for what the group dealt with this entire episode.
I just find that the villains in the whole Sense8 history are not really the focus of the show. They're kind of structure. But the focus of the show is the Sense8s and their relationships and how they handle their abilities and interacting with humans in response to that. And so it doesn't bother me that the villains or these weird other groups that get introduced are kind of lackluster, because I think that the shining part of the show is the original Sense8s and their relationships, and I still think that was very strong in this movie, whatever we want to call it. It's technically an episode.
We'll call it an
episode.
Netflix. I think one of the biggest moments of this episode was when they were chasing down Lila, who had Whispers because she had intercepted him at their trade-off when they got Wolfgang back. And so she actually shoots Kala because Kala is using Wolfgang's shooting abilities, and then she walks in and Lila just goes, pew! But I felt like we had a pretty strong moment to see how every single person felt like they got shot in that moment.
Well, we had to know that was coming at some point to one of the characters, because they heavily foreshadowed that previously with the whole this other Sense8 group, they felt all of the things. I guess that was the point of the lacuna being in because of that story, but I still think it could have been left out. But that when a Sense8 dies, especially if they're murdered or whatever, like everybody feels that pain equally.
Yeah, I felt like I'm kind of conflicted on this one because I think it might have been a little stronger if they had killed her. Like, I really like her, so I'm like, you can't kill her. But it was.
I think there should have been a death.
I think that is another challenge of the 2.5-hour episode, is that you can't hit someone with such a big loss like that, a big character loss, because you don't have the time to do it justice in terms of show everyone move through that grief. Well, because you don't have the time.
Well, since they were getting the Firefly treatment and Serenity treatment, I thought they were going to go that route a little bit more with this character thing, but then they ended up not doing that. So if you haven't seen Firefly or Serenity, you should go watch those. But
yeah, so they do end up saving Kala, but I felt like there should have been some death. It made it feel a little too easy and happy.
Too safe.
Yeah, it was a little too safe for all the characters, and everyone got their happy ending, which is kind of different from the previous 2 seasons of the show, where there was a lot of hard times and a lot of tragedy throughout the first 2 seasons.
I think it would have been stronger to have this happy conclusion if it had been a, 3 to 5 season thing. But after, 2 seasons, you don't expect people to, live happily ever after. It needs to be a longer, drawn-out thing, which obviously they didn't get because Netflix chose to cancel them because they're dumb. So I'm conflicted about it because I'm really happy with the ending, but the payoff for, I like grief and tragedy. I just do. And there just wasn't enough of that. Like I said earlier, the main focus that I enjoy out of the season is the relationships, and we had an interesting element added to this episode movie situation. Yeah. So Kala is married to Rajan. Is that his name?
Yeah.
And then she's also in a weird relationship with Wolfgang on the side with their Sense8 abilities.
Which this has been happening for 3 seasons now, 2 seasons, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's only.
I count this as the 3rd season, yeah. But that's always been our biggest struggle, is because I really want to like Kala, but then I'm like, you're also cheating on your husband and not willing to just break up with it.
The interesting part of this little trio situation is it was never shown on screen that Rajan was let into that. It was never explained to him on screen, and there wasn't any callback to having been explained off screen. So we're sitting there being like, when is he going to figure this out? Is he going to be upset? Where's the drama with that? And then when she pseudo died, they are accepting of it, and there had been some other looks in between that as well, where we're like, does he already know? Is he cool with this? Where was that scene? And so it was strange to not be let in on that unless we just totally missed something that happened, but I don't think so.
I don't think we did.
Yeah, but then by the end of it, they decide to be a happy little trio for the time being, which I thought was actually really cute and well done by the end of it. But the journey to get there, I think that's my biggest, if I had a problem with this whole thing, is the journey to get to the end was not quite congruent with where we ended up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think very much so, but like I said, I feel like that makes total sense for when you have to compress 3 seasons of character development into, and the storylines you want to conclude in a gratifying way, and be well, we have 2.5 hours to do it. And
yeah, it's a byproduct of the circumstance, unfortunately. And I still really enjoyed the episode as a whole, but there were still some inconsistencies and problems along the way.
Especially something as easy as that, which would have taken just one conversation of Rajan saying, well, I know she loves him, and she says she loves me, and I trust that, so I'm just going to keep moving forward for now. And that would all it would take, but they didn't do that.
Or even just to we talked about it.
Which, to be fair, we were both sitting there I wonder how they're going to resolve this issue between Rajan and Wolfgang. And then Kala got shot, and I was like, that was not how I was expecting them to resolve that by just killing her. And it would have worked, though.
It would have.
But then they saved her, and then we're back in the same circumstance. And that brings us to the end. And I actually really enjoyed the ending. And you get Nomi and Amanita's wedding. And I'm glad they put this in, because there's no way they could not have it in, because they were building up to it for 2 seasons.
And they get married on the Eiffel Tower. It was such a good ending, conclusion scene. I just really enjoyed it. And you had some closure with Nomi's family as well, which was very nice. And I really enjoyed it with our happy little ferrymen coming in and giving pot brownies. Giving
the magical LGBT-friendly pot brownies.
If only everything were that simple in the world. But, yeah, it was a really good ending. You got to see everybody pretty much coupled up at the end, which was really nice. And we had our, token orgy scene of this season episode.
I'm glad it was there, because we got to the very end and there's like 2 minutes left in the episode.
Done this yet.
And we're like,
where is it?
No orgy scene. It's kind of like Sense8's thing.
So if for some reason you're watching this and you have not watched Sense8 at all, so their Sense8 abilities and being able to jump into each other's heads and kind of be present with each other even when they're apart allows them to essentially be present when people are having sex. And so it ends up once a season they're all having sex with other people and then they all end up in like a Sense8 little orgy scene. Yeah. And this time they had everybody in loving relationships, and the body representation in this scene was great.
And it was the crazy, like, just the way they filmed that scene was very cool though, because there was like so many bodies. It was looked like an art.
It was good because they start with like 2 people and they're together, and they like had everybody
and you just
start
see a hand roll up behind, and you're like, what?
Because we're like, are they just gonna have everybody separate and just show everybody has their happy like sexual endings? Cool.
I was like, I will not stand for this.
And then I was like, wait, there was an extra arm there, and that person's color does not match those people's color. Like,
as a side note, I was very impressed that like the ending I felt like was pretty bold because it just like. Then like framed down to just like a wet strap on.
Which not only that, but a rainbow colored strap on. I liked it. I thought it was a nice touch.
Well, just stuff like that never gets shown on TV, so it was funny that they were just like, well, we're gonna show it.
The end. Sense8. Like, it was nice. I liked it. So while we have gushed a lot and we've also critiqued a lot, we wanted to mention a few other things that we had issues with. One of them we've kind of touched on already, which was the feeling rushed aspect of it, which is just, as I said earlier, a byproduct of the circumstances. It's what's going to happen when you try to cram in this big, huge storyline arc into a 2.5-hour movie.
And like we had said before, we felt like it was a little light on the darkness and the tragedy that I think had been pretty represented in the tone of the show. It was a much lighter tone throughout, even in the most serious moments. It didn't feel quite as dangerous for our characters, and you didn't feel quite like they had the danger or the trouble that they were actually in because of that. That being said, though, I feel like they stayed true to the spirit of the show because, like I said, at its core, it's the characters and how they come together, and I do think the moments where they did that were still the strongest parts of this episode and felt very in line with the rest of the show when they're all together, like in the car, listening to the music, or lots of those cool little scenes that you really get to enjoy with those characters.
We also got them all in one location physically for like the first time ever, I think, in this entire history of the show. I don't think we've ever had everybody all together unless I'm misremembering, but I thought it was a cool touch.
Which, as a sidebar, having them all together, I told her we were watching these scenes, I was like, as someone who edits videos, this is a nightmare because you'll have a character talking and then the same character walks in the room and then you clip to this other character now being in the same position talking since they can all like pop into each other and talk for each other. People are constantly switching places, or so they'll be like talking to someone and then walk in behind. It just, I was like, this is madness.
Overall, I think this was a good ending to a Sense8. I'm really sad that it's over. If you watched our season 2 review, which we filmed right before they announced that they were canceling it, we absolutely love this show. I think it has the best diversity on television. And I'm just really sad that Netflix chooses to keep and promote things like 13 Reasons Why, which is very harmful and misrepresented in a lot of areas. Well, it does help some people, but I feel like Sense8 is just an overwhelmingly positive and representative show, and I'm just really disappointed that they choose to act something like this and keep a lot of things that aren't as good.
Yeah, I feel like the message and power behind this show are so much worth keeping around over some, like, let's just be straight up, garbage that Netflix puts out. So we're disappointed. It's such a wholesome show. I feel like it has such a good message, and
it's so freaking original for a sci-fi. Like, blows me away.
I think this proves that despite the speed bumps the Wachowskis sometimes run into, their ability to create a world and an idea and then follow through with a strong message in that is still just as strong as when the first Matrix movie came out. And I think I'm really excited to see what they do next because they're really good at what they do. That being said, we are sad the show has ended, and we love this show. We think you should go watch it, and despite its issues, I think it was the best way that they could have ended the show with only having 2.5 hours for such a complex, like, monster of a show with so many characters and everything. I think it turned out really well, and we both really enjoyed it.
So let us know what you thought of the Sense8 finale. We would love to hear your opinions, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you would have changed. And if you liked this video, please give us a thumbs up. It lets us know that you want to see more videos like this. And if you like us, please subscribe. We would love to have you join the BS Review family. We're creeping up to 500 subscribers. I would love to get there soon. Please join. And we have a ton of different content on this channel. We try to diversify it as much as possible so we don't only do movie reviews. And you can check out some of those other videos over there, or head over to our channel to check out other series. And we will see you guys in our next video.